But, the Trinity, try to understand. I know we get into this and it can be so easy to maybe move on into it further. But, if they're believing in Jesus and they're confessing him and they're not making trouble for you, you might consider leaving them be. You might not help them as much as you think you can. And if you've already shown them things like John 10, you always want to try to help a person who may be misled. But if they're still believing in Jesus and they use the Trinity because they think it helps them with monotheism, sometimes you have to cut your losses, or at least not always think you have to save the day all the time, and let them be. Let them be and know that at least they're expressing faith in God's Son. They may not have the right framework in which to do it, and maybe they'll get there someday. Focus on the non-Christians. Focus on the people who are not yet familiar or don't know the evidence, like what we were talking about. Stuff like the satellite photos of the 4 rivers that are mentioned in Genesis, or evidence of the flood, or evidence of the diversification of languages in the region of Mesopotamia and the Tower of Babel footprint that I'll show tomorrow. Sodom and Gomorrah. This is hard evidence. This and a lot of other things that, I only mentioned 4 from Genesis. There's all kinds of stuff that I could use and highlight. Yeah, it's true, William. So the contrast between Jesus and those other gods, the other sons of God, and he did it himself. The account we were talking about, John 10, I believe that in Psalm 82, those are spirit sons of God that he's talking about. And that Jesus made the contrast himself. He said, look, he's calling even these people against whom my Father's word came, gods. So there shouldn't be a problem with me being considered as such, since I'm coming in the Father's name and have been sent by him. Complete contrast, absolutely justified the position he was claiming, and showed that they just didn't understand the biblical terminology, nor, even if they did, it doesn't seem to me that they would apply it to him fairly. So in either case, Jesus' answer stands. I don't really have anything to add to it. There are other texts that have become important and relevant and controversial. I think it starts and ends with John 10 for me, because anyone who wants to question my view of gods, monotheism, and texts that use gods or God, I can't think of a better person to answer it than Jesus himself. So I defer to Jesus, and I'm not doing that in a way that I think is just taking it light. I think that account is so powerful, and I write about it. I deal with James White on that level. With John 10, I don't think he ever effectively addressed that, nor I don't think they can. Well, what can you say? They're going to be you make them argue with Jesus rather than argue with a Trinitarian who doesn't want to see your position or leave you be. Let them argue with Jesus. Tell them to explain to you why Jesus cites Psalm 82 to defend himself. And then they'll say something like, well, that text doesn't refer to, that's talking about human judges. Well, that's not my point. Why is Jesus citing that text to defend himself? Don't get off that. No matter what they say, until you hear the answer, Jesus is citing this text to defend himself because, until those words or their equivalent come out of the other person's mouth, do not leave the discussion to another topic. You stay right there, because until they understand that's what he's doing, they're gonna default to this alternate view of who the gods are in Psalm 82, and not understand that's not the point. In fact, if they identify those gods as human judges, it even makes Jesus somewhat of a lesser person, I would say, or at least he's saying you can, if even these lower than angel human judges can be called gods, it still is a good argument, but it elevates him more if those beings in that text are actual spirit gods, because then he's saying, well, look, I'm the Son of God, those are sons of God, God's word came against them, it's not coming against me, so what's your problem? Try to simplify it like that. It's the best way to deal with them, because otherwise they're gonna get you into these realms of metaphysical speculation. You're going to find yourself speculating with someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, because who knows anything about spirit and what happens relationally there? We only know what the text says and what it doesn't. And it's all on our side. They have a few texts that can kind of support what they're saying on some level, but they don't fit with the other ones, right? All of ours fit. They fit together perfectly. And the only problem we've ever had is this charge of polytheism, because it's not hard to establish that there are other gods or that Jesus is called a God in comparison to the Father without being a rival. But when you have Jesus himself using a text that bears on all these things in response to people who are charging him with claiming to be the very thing that either we or Trinitarians say he was, there's not a better text. Memorize that text. Go through John 10 and be as familiar with it as you can. Look at what I wrote about it as well, if that'll help you. Rewatch this video on it. I'm going to segment some of these videos, especially the Saturday show where there are multiple topics, so that I'll send out smaller sections or segments of this video and then just be dealing with that. So I'll probably break it up and send out a video later that just deals with my discussion on John 10 today. And then maybe another video on one of the other subjects, and then the whole video. So, but I'll make sure it's relevant if I do that and useful, so that you'll have something that then, apart from this whole discussion, if you just want to show someone a discussion on the John 10 part, you can just send them that part of the video.